Topic one, which is assurance and non-assurance engagements. Topic one, assurance and non-assurance engagement. Assurance and non-assurance engagements. So the key learning outcomes under this topic one. The key learning outcomes are this topic one. The first one is the concepts. The concepts of assurance and non-assurance engagements. Non-assurance engagements. Non-assurance engagements. The next one is engagement letters. Engagement letter for assurance. For assurance and non-assurance engagements. And non-assurance engagements. Next is agreed upon procedures. Agreed upon procedures. Next, compilation engagements. Compilation engagements. Next, key audit matters. Key audit matters. Then the last one, different types of audit opinions. Types of auditor opinions. Types of audit opinions. Or evidence gathered. So those are the key learning outcome areas from this topic one on assurance and non-assurance engagement.
Nas peke yake. Nas peke yake ndio yako online.
Yes.
Hii mwingine hapa.
So let's do the introduction of this topic, assurance and non-assurance engagement. So audit is defined as an assurance function. The information provided in the financial statements examined by the auditor is meant to enhance some degree of confidence among the users. For that case, the audit is perceived to be an assurance function. To understand the essence of audit as an assurance function, we can use a kind of an analogy. We just real life a scenario analogy. So we have got two persons here. We have got a buyer. You have got a buyer or prospective. No, here in question I explained in the morning. So we just to start from the definition. Yes, nakumbuka ilikuwa explain these are introduction. So we start from the definition of the term assurance engagement. Let's start from the definition assurance engagement. Let's start from the definition of the term assurance engagement. Tulikuwa tumefanya explanation earlier in the morning. So how to define the term assurance engagement? So definition of the term assurance engagement. 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 So you write down the following. This is an engagement. 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 Where the fractional, where the fractional, where the fractional, where the fractional, where the fractional expresses a conclusion, expresses a conclusion, expresses a conclusion designed to enhance, designed to enhance, designed to enhance, designed to enhance the degree of confidence, the degree of confidence, the degree of confidence, the degree of confidence of the intended users, of the intended users, of the intended users, other than a responsible party, 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 about the subject matter, about the subject matter, about the subject matter, about the subject matter, and against a suitable criteria, and against a suitable criteria, and against a suitable criteria, and against a suitable criteria. Paragraph. It is an engagement in which it is an engagement in which it is an engagement in which a professional accountant, a professional accountant, a professional accountant evaluates the subject matter, the subject matter that is the responsibility, that is the responsibility, that is the responsibility that is the responsibility of another party, of another party, of another party, of another party, against identified suitable criteria, against identified suitable criteria, against identified suitable criteria, and to express a conclusion, and to express a conclusion, and to express a conclusion that provides the intended user, that provides the intended user, that provides the intended user with confidence, with confidence, with confidence about the subject matter, with confidence about the subject matter, with confidence about the subject matter. Full stop. An audit is therefore an example. An audit is therefore an example. An audit is therefore an example of an assurance engagement, of an assurance engagement, of an assurance engagement. Since the auditor evaluates, since the auditor evaluates, since the auditor evaluates financial statements, since the auditor evaluates financial statements as prepared by the management, as prepared by the management, as prepared by the management, and reports, and reports, and reports, and reports on whether or not, on whether or not, on whether or not they give a true and fair view, on whether or not they give a true and fair view, whether or not they give a true and fair view. So that's the introduction on what assurance engagement entails. So let's now move on to the basic elements of assurance engagement. Basic elements of assurance engagement. Basic elements. Basic elements of assurance engagement. Basic elements of assurance engagement. Basic elements of assurance engagement. So from our definition, those are terms or those elements which appears in that definition. And in the morning when we're doing the introduction of assurance engagement, we identify such kind of elements which constitute an assurance engagement. They can be referred as elements or the components of assurance engagement. So you see that all assurance engagement has got 5 basic elements. All assurance engagement is got 5 basic elements. All the assurance engagement has got 5 basic elements. We use the mnemonic crest to identify these particular elements. We use the mnemonic crest to identify these components of assurance engagement. Where this C of the first one there, the C, represent what we call the suitable criteria. The suitable criteria. The suitable criteria, the suitable criteria. So criteria is the benchmark or a standard against which the subject matter is normally evaluated. So the criterion is the benchmark or a standard against which the subject matter is normally evaluated. For example, in the audit of the financial statements, the criteria will be the identified financial reporting framework on which basis the financial statements are normally prepared. This includes the international financial reporting standards, international financial reporting standards, international accounting standards, international accounting standards, generally accepted accounting principles, the applicable Company Act requirement, etc. Now, when the people who are developing the standards or the criteria, there are certain qualities of a good criteria which must be factored into. So, we have the qualities of a good criteria. Qualities of a good criteria. That criteria needs to be reliable, something that can be dependable as a form of arriving to the objective opinion. That criteria also needs to be relevant. Good criteria needs to be relevant, applicable in the context of the objective to be attained. The other one, that criteria needs also to be understandable. Understandable in the sense that it's quite very easier to comprehend and use. The other one, there must be what we call the neutrality aspect of the criteria. The neutrality aspect of the criteria. The neutrality aspect of the criteria. The other one, there must be an aspect of completeness. So it must be complete in all aspects. So what are the qualities of a good criteria? A good criteria needs to be reliable, it needs to be relevant, it needs to be understandable, it needs to be neutral, and it must also be complete in all aspects. The second one, we have got the one R. So R, number 2, R is for what we call assurance report. Assurance report. Upon the completion of the work, the practitioner is required to express an opinion or to give some level of assurance. So it's the report where that level of assurance is normally contained. So the practitioner must be able to obtain sufficient appropriate evidence as the basis of expressing or forming a desired level of assurance. The number 3, we have got E. E stands for evidence. Evidence stroke engagement process. Evidence of the engagement process. Evidence of the engagement process. So the professional accountant has the responsibility to ensure that they perform the work to obtain sufficient appropriate evidence, which will form the basis of an opinion. Then now number 4, we have what the S for what we call the subject matter. The subject matter. So subject matter represent the basis of the information that's examined or reviewed. That's examined or reviewed by the auditor. And this subject matter was prepared by another party. It was the responsibility of another party to prepare the subject matter. The number 5, we have the T there. Number 5, we have got the T for the 3-party relationship. The 3-party relationship. So all assurance engagement has got the 3-party relationship. Or assurance engagement has got the 3 parties relationship. So who are these 3 parties? Number 1, we have got the fractionaire. This is the professional accountant engaged to examine or review the subject matter. The second one, we have got the responsible party. This is the one who is tasked with the responsibility to prepare and present the subject matter, which should reflect a true and fair view. Then the third one, we have the intended user. This refers to the recipient of the assurance report. This refers to the recipient of assurance report. So all assurance engagement have the 5 basic elements: the suitable criteria, the assurance report, evidence, the subject matter, then the 3 parties relationship. So let's now put down the following under the elements of assurance engagement. All assurance engagement has got 5 basic elements. All assurance engagements has got 5 basic elements. All assurance engagements have got 5 basic elements. or assurance engagement has got the 5 basic elements. So number 1, we have got a suitable criteria. Number 1, suitable criteria. Number 1, suitable criteria. Number 1, suitable criteria. So this refers to the benchmark or standards. This refers to the benchmark or standards. This refers to the benchmarks or standards against which the subject matter is normally evaluated. 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 For example, in the audit of historical financial statements, for example, in the audit of historical financial statements, for example, in the audit of historical financial statements, for example, in the audit of historical financial statements, the criteria is the identified financial reporting framework. The criteria is the identified financial reporting framework. The criteria is the identified financial reporting framework. The criteria is the identified financial reporting framework, which includes IFRS, which includes IFRS, which includes IFRS, IAS, IS, 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 GAPS, relevant company act, relevant company act, relevant company act, disclosure requirements, etc. Disclosure requirements, etc. Disclosure requirements, etc. Then we go to number 2. Oh, no, before that, let's go to the qualities of a good criterion. 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 So 1 is relevance. 2, reliable. 3, understandable. Then 4, neutrality. Then the last one, completeness. Yes, Nancy, you okay with that pace? Or a bit fast?
The pace is fine. I'm okay.
It's okay. Okay, so let's now move on to number 2. Number 2 is assurance report. Number 2, assurance report. Number 2, assurance report. Number 2, assurance report. This relates to the document. This relates to the document where the practitioner, this relates to the document where the practitioner provides the level of assurance required. Provide the level of assurance required. Provide the level of assurance required. Provide the level of assurance required, or an opinion relating to the subject matter, or an opinion relating to the subject matter, or an opinion relating to the subject matter, or an opinion relating to the subject matter. Then we go to number 3. Number 3 is evidence. stroke engagement process. Evidence stroke engagement process. Evidence stroke engagement process. Evidence stroke engagement process. Evidence stroke engagement process. The practitioner should plan. The practitioner should plan and obtain sufficient appropriate evidence. The practitioner should plan and obtain sufficient appropriate evidence. The practitioner should plan and obtain sufficient appropriate evidence for the basis of forming an opinion. 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 The next go to is the subject matter. Number 4, subject matter. Subject matter. This refers to the matter examined or reviewed. This refers to the matter examined or reviewed by the practitioner. This refers to the matter being examined or reviewed by the practitioner, which was a responsibility of another party. Which was a responsibility of another party. Which was a responsibility of another party. E.g., financial statements, financial statements, financial statements, information systems, information systems, information systems, internal control systems, internal control systems, internal control systems, laws and regulations, laws and regulations, laws and regulations, etc. Laws and regulation, etc. Then you go to the last one, number 5, the three-party relationship. The three-party relationship. The three-party relationship. The three-party relationship. So this includes A, the practitioner, A, the practitioner, A, the practitioner, A, the practitioner. This is the professional accountant. This is the professional accountant. This is the professional accountant who is engaged. This is the professional accountant who is engaged to examine or review the subject matter. To examine or review the subject matter information. To examine or review the subject matter information. The number 2, the responsible party. 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 This one who prepares the subject matter. This one who prepares the subject matter. This is one who prepares the subject matter. This is one who prepares the subject matter. Then the third one, we have the intended user. Intended user. Intended user. Intended user. This is the recipient of the report. This is the recipient of the assurance report. This is the recipient of the assurance report. This is the recipient of assurance report. So that's all as far as the elements or the components of assurance engagement entails. So next, we are moving on to the classification or types of assurance engagements. So classification. So types of assurance engagement. Classification, so types of assurance engagement. So we have got 4 types or 4 classification of assurance engagement. So number 1, we have what we call reasonable assurance engagement. Assurance engagement. Vis-a-vis limited. Vis-a-vis limited assurance engagement. Assurance engagement. The number two, we have attestation engagement. Attestation engagement. Vis-a-vis limited, direct reporting. Direct reporting engagement. Direct reporting engagement. Direct reporting engagement. Direct reporting engagement. Attestation engagement vis-a-vis direct reporting engagement. So we shall begin with the first one, reasonable assurance engagement vis-a-vis limited assurance engagement. We shall start with the first one, reasonable vis-a-vis the limited assurance engagement. The limited assurance engagement. So always, if you want to get to know the differences between these two, reasonable assurance engagement and limited assurance engagement, there are 2 words that we need to identify. There are 2 words which, first of all, we need to identify. One of that is engagement risk. Engagement risk. Engagement risk. That's the first word that you need to identify. Engagement risk. So engagement risk, this refers to the chance or the possibility of the questionnaire being able to express inappropriate opinion. Be able to express inappropriate opinion. That the subject matter is materially misstated. So this guy could be saying that in our opinion, the subject matter do reflect a true and fair view, which is not the reality, the reality. So that is referred as what? Engagement risk. Engagement risk. There are 3 components of 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 engagement risk. So one, we have what you call inherent risk. Inherent risk. Then the second one, we have what you call control risk. Control risk. The third one, we have what we call detection risk. Detection risk. So inherent risk is the chance that the subject matter could be materially misstated, but due to factors not related to the controls put in place. They have got nothing to do with the control system put in place by the client. For example, in a situation where the managers lack integrity, they are dishonest, where the clients and staff are working under undue pressure exerted by the management, where there is complex accounting systems, for example, where it requires that the financial statements be prepared based on what? Estimates, on estimates. The number two, we have the control risk. Control risks are attributed by the factors related to the control system put in place. There is a high possibility that the control system put in place may not be having that capability of detecting errors of the fraud, which are corrected in appropriate time. So these two are often referred to the risk of material misstatement. The risk of material misstatement. There is a possibility that the subject matter do contain risk of material misstatement due to errors and fraud. This one upper, the detection risk is due to maybe inadequacy or inefficiencies caused by the auditor. So these two here, auditor has got no control. On the inherent and control risk, auditor have got no control. While detection risk is something within the means and control of the auditor. Okay, so the next item that you need to identify, whenever you want to get to know what is a reasonable assurance engagement and limited assurance engagement, is what we call the form of opinion. Form of opinion expressed. Form of opinion expressed. Form of opinion expressed. The form of opinion expressed. So there are two forms of opinion. So an opinion is a conclusion arrived by the auditor. There are two forms of opinion. So one, we have what called positive opinion. Positive opinion, positive opinion, positive opinion. Then the second one, we have a negative opinion, negative, a negative opinion. The negative opinion. So positive opinion is expressed. Okay, so we shall come back to maybe that later. So these are the two terms that we need to identify for you to understand what's the meaning of reasonable assurance engagement and what's the meaning of a limited assurance engagement. So the aim of all this engagement here is to reduce engagement risk to low acceptable level. All of them are aiming to reduce what we call engagement risk to low acceptable level, but as the basis of forming an opinion, as a basis of forming an opinion. So for the reasonable assurance engagement, the aim is to reduce the engagement risk to low acceptable level as the basis of forming a positive what? Opinion. As the basis of forming a positive opinion. While on the limited assurance engagement, the aim is to reduce the engagement risk to low acceptable level, but always that risk is greater as compared to reasonable assurance engagement as the basis of forming a negative opinion. So a positive opinion is expressed under reasonable assurance engagement, while negative opinion is expressed under limited assurance engagement. So there is a standard words in the auditor's assurance report when it comes to expressing a positive or a negative opinion. In a positive opinion, the auditor will be saying that in my opinion, the subject matter do reflect or does not reflect a true and fair view and has not been prepared or it has been prepared in accordance with the identified financial reporting framework. While a negative opinion will be expressed in a limited assurance report where the auditor will be saying that nothing has come to attention to cause us to believe that the subject matter is materially misstated, or nothing has come to our attention to cause us to believe that the subject matter do reflect a true and fair view. So that's what we need to know as far as the definition of those two important engagements are concerned. So we shall begin by the reasonable assurance engagement. Reasonable assurance engagement. Reasonable assurance engagement, number one. Reasonable assurance engagement. This is an engagement. This is an engagement where the practitioner aims to reduce to reduce the assurance engagement risk, the assurance engagement risk, the assurance engagement risk to low acceptable level, to low acceptable level, to low acceptable level as the basis of expressing, as the basis of expressing a positive opinion, as a basis of expressing a positive opinion, as a basis of expressing a positive opinion. And next we go to limited assurance engagement, limited assurance engagement, limited assurance engagement. This is an engagement whose objective, this is an engagement whose objective is to enable the practitioner. This is an engagement whose objective is to enable the practitioner. This is an engagement whose objective is to enable the practitioner to reduce assurance engagement risk, to reduce assurance engagement risk to exceptionally low acceptable level, to exceptionally low acceptable level, to exceptionally low acceptable level, to exceptionally low acceptable level as the basis of expressing a negative opinion, as the basis of expressing a negative opinion, as the basis of expressing a negative opinion, as the basis of expressing a negative opinion. And let's go to forms of opinion. Forms of opinion expressed in an assurance report. Forms of opinion expressed in an assurance report. Forms of opinion expressed in assurance report. Forms of opinion expressed in assurance report. So number one, positive opinion. Number one, positive opinion. Number one, positive opinion. This is expressed, this is expressed, this is expressed, this is expressed in a reasonable assurance engagement, 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 in a reasonable assurance engagement with the standard wordings such as, with the standard wordings such as, with the standard wordings such as, with the standard wording such as, open quotes, in our opinion, the financial statements, in our opinion, the financial statements do reflect, or does not reflect, do reflect, or does not reflect a true and fair view, 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 and has not been prepared in all material aspects, and has not been prepared in all material aspect, and has not been prepared in all material aspect, in accordance with identified financial reporting framework, in accordance with the identified financial reporting framework. In accordance with the identified financial reporting framework. End of quote. Then we go to number 2, negative opinion. Negative opinion. Negative opinion. Negative opinion. This is expressed under limited assurance engagement. This is expressed under limited assurance engagement. This is expressed under limited assurance engagement with the standard words, such as nothing has come to our attention. Nothing has come to our attention to cause us to believe. Nothing has come to our attention to cause us to believe. Nothing has come to our attention to cause us to believe that the financial statements does not comply with the financial reporting framework, or contain any material misstatements, or contain any material misstatements, or contain any material misstatements, or contain any material misstatements. So those are the two forms of opinion. So next, I want us to look at the differences between reasonable assurance engagement and limited assurance engagement. Differences between reasonable assurance engagement and limited assurance engagement. Differences between reasonable assurance engagement and limited assurance engagement. Differences between reasonable assurance engagement and limited assurance engagement. So we can use a table to give the differences between the two. So one, we have the basis, the column for the basis. Then you have a reasonable assurance engagement column. Then limited assurance engagement column. So number one, we begin with the objective. Number one, objective. So under reasonable assurance engagement, we write, the aim is to reduce assurance engagement risk. The aim is to reduce assurance engagement risk. The aim is to reduce assurance engagement risk to acceptable low level, to form the basis of expressing a positive opinion. form the basis of expressing a positive opinion. To form the basis of expressing a positive opinion. To form the basis of expressing a positive opinion. To form the basis of expressing a positive opinion. To form the basis of expressing a positive opinion. Then we go to the other side, unlimited assurance engagement. Unlimited assurance engagement. Unlimited assurance engagement. The aim is to reduce assurance engagement risk. The aim is to reduce assurance engagement risk. The aim is to reduce assurance engagement risk to exceptionally low level, to exceptionally low level, to exceptionally low level, but greater than in reasonable assurance engagement, but greater than in reasonable assurance engagement, but greater than in reasonable assurance engagement as the basis of forming a negative opinion, as the basis of forming a negative opinion, as the basis of forming a negative opinion, as the basis of forming a negative opinion. Number two, we go to what we call the level of engagement risk, 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 level of engagement risk. So under reasonable assurance engagement, under reasonable assurance engagement, we have got low level assurance engagement risk. Then under limited assurance engagement, we have got high level assurance engagement risk. High level assurance engagement risk. High level assurance engagement risk. Then number three, we have the form of opinion. 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 So under reasonable, we have a positive opinion. We have positive opinion, positive opinion. The other side, we have negative opinion, negative opinion, negative opinion, negative opinion, negative opinion. So then number four, we have level of assurance, 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 level of assurance. So under the reasonable, we have what we call the high level assurance, high level or reasonable assurance, high level or reasonable assurance, high level or reasonable assurance. The other side, we have what we call the low level or limited assurance, or limited assurance, or limited assurance. Next, we have got example, 5 examples, example. So under reasonable, we have got audit engagement, Under reasonable, you have an example there, auditor engagement, The other side example is a review engagement, e.g. financial cash flow statement review, cash flow statement review, internal audit interim audit, etc. Interim audit, etc. Interim audit, etc. So the other one, number 6, we have extent of audit procedures performed. Number 6, extent of audit procedures performed. Audit procedures performed. Extent of audit procedures performed. Extent of audit procedures performed. Extent of audit procedures performed. So under reasonable, extensive procedures are performed. Extensive procedures are performed. Extensive procedures are performed, such as risk assessment, such as risk assessment, such as a risk assessment, compliance test, compliance test, compliance test, compliance test, substantive test, substantive test, substantive test, analytical review procedures, analytical review procedures, etc. Analytical review procedures, etc. Then the other side, under limited assurance engagement. Under limited assurance engagement, limited procedures are performed. Limited procedures are performed. Limited procedures are performed, e.g., inquiry, and analytical review procedures, e.g., inquiry and analytical review procedures, e.g., inquiry and analytical review procedures, and analytical review procedures, and analytical review procedures. So those are the areas in those part of the assurance engagement, both the reasonable and what you call the limited assurance engagement. So at the end, they have mentioned certain procedures being performed, audit or assurance engagements about performing procedures so as to gather enough evidence or sufficient appropriate evidence. So you have what you call the risk assessment. Risk assessment. Risk assessment. The risk assessment was done to identify areas within the subject matter information that could be containing material misstatements, either due to frauds and errors. So this is applied for the reasonable assurance engagement. The other term that you mentioned is what we call compliance test. Compliance test. Compliance test. Compliance tests are also known as tests of control. Tests of control. Test of control. Test of control. Test of controls are the tests performed on the client system. They are the tests performed on the client system to determine if controls are in place, and to determine also if the control put in place are effective in detecting and preventing errors and fraud. The next we are going to call the substantive test. The substantive test. The substantive test. The substantive test, also known as the test of detail. The test of detail. Test of detail. Test of detail. Test of detail. So these are tests performed on the classes of transaction and balances. These are tests performed on the classes of transaction and balances, confirm how accurate and complete they are in all material aspects. The last we have mentioned analytical review procedures. 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 ARP. These are reasoning procedures. They help auditor in detecting any unusual items or to get explanation, more information pertaining to any unusual occurrences or items in the client financial reporting systems. For example, it can perform what you call the ratio analysis computation to obtain significant information regarding the company performance. For example, year one against year two. Then we have something like a current ratio. Current ratio is equal to current assets over current liability. The upon computation get covered year one, it was 2 to 1, year two, 1 to 3. So there's a quite significant changes in the current ratio, and that has got an impact on the company's working capital obligation. So managers can be put to task to explain why there is differences, why there is a negative trend on the company current ratio in those two corresponding period. So that's the end of that. So next we're moving on to attestation engagement and direct reporting engagement. Attestation engagement and direct reporting engagement. Attestation engagement and direct reporting engagement. So let's take some few minutes break. So let's now discuss these two: attestation engagement and direct reporting. Attestation engagement, direct reporting engagement. So there is instances when the audit is engaged to review what we call financial information. The auditor can be engaged to review financial information that was prepared by a responsible party. So the responsible party do make certain expression pertaining to the matters contained in the financial statements. Those representation which is inbounded in the financial statements are referred to as the financial statements assertion. Financial statement assertion. Financial statements assertions. Financial statements assertions. Refer to the term financial statements assertion. The work of what is to confirm whether those particular assertions are correct or they are not correct. Are managers saying the correct thing or they're not saying the correct thing regarding the financial statements? Information presentation. Examples of the assertions include this kind of assertions include use word SCA cover, SCA cover to identify this financial statement assertion. SCA cover. So A stand for what we call accuracy. You're confirming that the financial statements, events, and transaction are accurate. Accuracy. Then the second one, number two is C there for what you call classification. So we're checking whether the items have been classified in the correct classes of our accounts. Then the third one we have C for the cut-off. The cut-off. All transactions being recorded in the correct accounting period. The next number 4 we have A for allocation. The balances being located to the correct accounts. Then number 5 we have C for completeness. All transactions, events, and balances complete in all material aspect, completeness in all material aspects. The number 4 is about occurrence. In the transactions and events related to entity actually took place, they actually occurred. The number 6. Number 7 is valuation. Valuation is the appropriateness in the valuation of the items presented in the subject matter. Then number 8, we have got existence. Then the last one, 9, rights and obligation. Rights and obligation. You need to confirm that the entity has got the rights over their assets, and both the obligation are actually there. So such kind of an engagement, which what does is to confirm some accuracy of this particular wordings here, referred to as what? An attestation engagement. So attestation engagement is basically the review of financial information. So look at that an attestation engagement, an attestation engagement entails the review or examination of financial information against certain criteria to confirm whether the assertions are correct or incorrect. To confirm whether the assertions are correct or incorrect. Whether the assertions are correct or incorrect. The assertions refers to the statements or expression. The assertion refers to the statements or expression inbounded in the subject matter. 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 Examples include number 1, accuracy. Number 1, accuracy. Number 2, classification. Number 3, cut off. Number 4, allocation. Number 5, completeness. Number 6, occurrence. Number 7, valuation. Number 8, existence. Number 9, rights and obligation. Next, we go to direct reporting engagement. We go to direct reporting engagement. So direct reporting engagement. So auditor can also be engaged to do some work, then make a report to the people who requested it. Such kind of an engagement is known as direct reporting engagement. So write the following. This is where a professional accountant is engaged. This is where a professional accountant is engaged to give a special report on some aspects, on some aspects, on some aspects, on some aspects, on some aspects of the client's affairs, of the client's affairs, of the client's affairs. The practitioner measures or evaluates. The practitioner measures or evaluates. The practitioner measures or evaluates the subject matter against the applicable criteria, and the practitioner presents the subject matter, information as part of the assurance report, as part of the assurance report. The practitioner is required to report on the issues. The practitioner is required to report on the issues that have come to his attention, during his review of subject matter. So that's all with regarding those types or the classification of assurance engagement. So let's now move on to what we call the levels of assurance. Levels of assurance. Levels of assurance. Let's move on to levels of assurance. So there are three main levels of assurance. Number one, we have what we call the high level. The high level, which is also known as the reasonable level assurance. Reasonable level assurance. That's number one, in bracket, positive opinion. High level, so reasonable assurance, in bracket, positive opinion. So read that this is expressed under reasonable assurance engagement. This is expressed under a reasonable assurance engagement. This is expressed under a reasonable assurance engagement. This is expressed under a reasonable assurance engagement. The number two, we have a moderate, stroke what we call limited assurance engagement. Moderate stroke limited assurance engagement. Moderate stroke limited assurance engagement. Moderate stroke limited assurance engagement. This is expressed under limited assurance engagements. 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 Then number three, we have lowest level assurance. Number three, lowest level assurance. Lowest level assurance or no assurance. No assurance. Lowest level assurance or no assurance. Or no assurance. Or no assurance. So you write that this is a type of assurance. This is a type of assurance which is given This is a type of assurance which is given where the practitioner has been involved in the compilation of any type of information, whether financial or non-financial, on behalf of the client. This means that the client takes responsibility for any consequences. This means that the client takes responsibility for any consequences. This means that the client takes responsibility for any consequences. It may include a disclaimer. It may include a disclaimer such as we have not audited, reviewed or examined. We have not audited, reviewed or examined the accompanying information, and therefore we do not take any responsibility, for negative consequences. So that's all regarding the levels of assurance, the three of them: high level, then the moderator level, and lastly, lowest level or no assurance. So Nancy, you can stop there for today. Then we shall continue that topic in our next meeting on Saturday. Do you have any question, Nancy?
Our class won't be on Fridays.
Yes?
Our class won't be on Friday.
Yeah, no, not on Friday, but on weekends only.
Oh, okay. So the morning and afternoon sessions.
Yes.
All right.
Okay, so enjoy the rest of the weekend.
Thank you. Have a good one as well.
Okay, so